about the various citations and letters that had accompanied his medals. I'm sure he wouldn't want me dwelling on those here, but it suffices to say, that his service didn't falter or wither under fire, and his service was without an excess of regard to his personal safety. Sorry. But he had an abundance of concern for others. But it wasn't just his service in the Marine Corps that educated me on service, but the countless times he served all of us. I'm thinking he probably drove 100,000 miles transporting all of us. Not just my mom and my brother and I, but his nieces, his nephews, his grandchildren, anyone who needed it. He transported us, ran errands, drove back and forth to Colorado or New Mexico, keeping up with my wanderlust. All without a word of complaint. I wish I'd learned that lesson a little better, because Chloe and Wyatt, my son and daughter can attest, I whine and complain like mad anytime I feel inconvenienced. Sorry. Dad also taught us about the world and about travel. Before Dad, we traveled, but not far and not often. As a boy, visiting Dad's family in and around the Seattle area afforded me my first jet airplane ride. And while I was definitely a California boy through and through, I learned to love Washington and his family there. Some of my best memories are when we visited there, being with his parents, and my aunts and my uncles and my cousins. I remember learning from my grandma Vance that the right way to eat cornflakes is with ample blackberries freshly picked in the bramble next to their house and smothered in freshly delivered cream. We visited the Hawaiian Islands, one and only time so far anyway, to visit my Uncle Mike. And then on our way to move overseas when I was 12, Dad and I drove across the entire U.S. together. I often see in my mind's eye him and I sitting outside some hotel in the outskirts of Gallup, New Mexico, and watching a violent evening storm and marveling at the lightning strikes over and over in the surrounding fields. On that same trip, I experienced the magic of seeing my first firefly. And now, one of my favorite things is to go on a long car trip with my family. He taught me how to enjoy and relish that, and I truly love it. Of course, the biggest lesson about the world came when he got orders to Italy. Those years changed everything for me. I learned so many things there, and I know I'd be a different person now, a lesser version of myself, had it not been for that experience. When we first got to Italy, right away we visited Pompeii. My brother Todd was still a baby, maybe a year old, and he was in a stroller so we could push him around. But it turned out that the cobblestone roads in Pompeii with the deep gouges from the metal wheels and chariots proved more than a match for the stroller. So despite the stifling heat of the summer in southern Italy, Dad just picked up Todd, stroller and all, and carried him around all over Pompeii that day. That was Jack. Likewise, I'll never forget the weeks spent with Todd, my mom, and her sister, my Aunt Lori, and her parents, my grandparents, Arthur and Joy, as Jack drove us in a Fiat minibus that looked too small to fit just him even, up the length of Italy, through Austria, Germany, and back. On multiple occasions, he took my mom and I and Todd to Capri, which is a beautiful island off the coast of Naples, where we stayed in the most amazing hotel on a cliff that overlooked the Mediterranean and the Bay of Naples and the Amalfi Coast. We stayed in that hotel the first time because they gave us a steeply discounted rate they extended to all service members. But we returned there many times for the beauty, the charm, the views, and the staff. The manager, the waitstaff, the bartender, who all seemed like permanent fixtures and seemed to remember us each time we visited the Caesar Augustus. That hotel became a real theme in my life, as the staff extended me that same discounted rate every time I visited with Dad or without him. First with friends, much later with college roommates, and most importantly when they hosted my wife Robin and I. They upgraded us to one of the few suites when we visited and were married on their terrace. Reciting our vows, we stared deep in one of she and I's most cherished memories, and it wouldn't have occurred that way, not been as beautiful or as magic or as special, had it not been for Dad and his introduction to Europe and to the island, to that hotel. While it may sound odd, the truth is the most important lessons I learned from Gunnery Sergeant Vance were about love and about devotion. It wasn't until I was older, when a friend of mine married a woman who had a young boy, that I finally realized what it would have been to be a stepfather from his perspective, and the challenges that, frankly, that presented. And then it took it until then for me to realize and fully appreciate that not once, as my Uncle Mike said, not once when I was a kid or a bratty teenager or a young adult, not once had I ever had a sense from Jack that I was anything but his real son. Never had I felt that he didn't love me in the same way that he loved my brother Todd. For some reason, I called him by his first name, Jack, the whole time I was growing up, unconsciously withholding that simple but important distinction. But from that moment on, I always called him Dad. Because I realized that Dad isn't just about genetics, it's about love, and it's about devotion. As he said, I'm very lucky because I've known the love of two dads. But it wasn't just his devotion to us that taught Todd and I about the concept. It was how every day with our mother, it was clear to all that he loved and cherished her and would do anything for her. Sorry, Jesus Christ. Through all of his deployments, his unaccompanied tours to faraway places, throughout our time in Italy and our time in the U.S., the time when he was well and the time when he was ill, even in the final days, it was clear that he loved her dearly. He loved us all dearly. He was devoted to her and devoted to us, and he put us and our needs and our desires before his. In fact, our desires became his. He took care of us from the beginning and through all those days that we had the unique and exquisite pleasure of sharing our lives with him. So I guess my last story has to do with the very last time that I wanted to tell Jack no. It's just a few weeks ago. We brought him home from the hospital and moved him home with the hospice care towards the end. I so wanted to tell him, no, don't go. But because he taught me about love and about caring and devotion, I didn't. Dad's time of service was behind him. And so I just told him how much I loved him. Thanks, I'm so sorry. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. What a wonderful tribute, a very special tribute. And I thank you for taking those memories and sharing them with us. Very, very special. And following Scott's good words,